Daniel.
Hey, I had a quick question on kind of how you think about, say, a large player entering, uh, not entering a space, but like kind of expanding into a space, such as United Health acquiring Amedisys. How do you kind of think about, say, some of the smaller home health and hospice players? Like, how will they be impacted? Like, do you kind of like branch out to there, or is your focus all on this big acquisition that's happening?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think it's as programmatic and deterministic as saying exactly how, but there's a few things I would think about if I was thinking about that in that space. Number one is what is the near-term disruption, right? Through many acquisitions, you have some sort of disruption. So there may actually be a trade to go long some of the competitors during that sort of disruption. I would look carefully and track carefully, maybe it's through job boards or industry boards to try and get a sense of is the medicine losing nurses and doctors and employees, so such that there could be some sort of market share leakage. Large acquisitions are pretty messy for the most part, so that would be one consideration. A second consideration in a space like that, which I know fairly well, I'm not super recent on, super updated on it, is a follow the leader strategy, right? United buys Amedisys. Does that push Humana or CVS or Anthem, now Elevance, into doing an acquisition in the space? So I think that's another consideration of are the remaining players now take out opportunities. So that's another framework. Another one is trying to understand what United will do with their asset. What is the market share that United has in the key geographies, and will they start funneling their own customers into that space? And so I would look at the relative market shares in the key, pick the top 10 markets for home health and pull the data from the regulatory filings to try and understand what is United Health's market share in these areas, what is Amedisys market share in these areas. Could United Health get Amedisys up to their market share by insourcing more of their volume, keeping more of that in-house, and what does that mean to the competitor? So maybe there is a competitive concern about losing share in a Texas, for example, if United is going to push more of their Texas people in-house. Um, what else? What am I missing on that, Andrew?
There are kind of two pieces to it. One is when a large player is entering an industry, and then you start thinking, what could they buy next? Who could be a takeout? And stocks tend to re-rate. There also do exist, and there's kind of, when you understand the industry, which players would be, digestible acquisitions that would offer some kind of strategic benefit to the acquirer. These are things that come up. The flip side of this is sometimes when a large player enters an industry, everything derates. There was a good stretch back in, I want to say 2018, where every single consumer business was under pressure because either Amazon was going to undercut them, or if Amazon didn't get involved in that, then it wasn't worth Amazon's time and was probably a bad business anyway. Like there was this period of malaise that occurred. And there was a similar thing that happened, with blockchain and some of the payment companies. You want to ask two questions. One is, what is the perceived, change in the industry structure because of this? What could happen? What will be, will there be a disintermediation? Will there be an efficiency? Can this persist? And what would be an appropriate amount of disruption or disintermediation? That's one thing where you're kind of taking the current state and running with it. The other side of that is to say, does it make sense to fade this trend where everybody is getting a little bit over their skis, over extrapolating that things are going to be radically different than how they are? Could you take the under on that? And this is very important because it can be very costly to believe this too early. What is your catalyst path towards people realizing that this might not actually be the transformation that people thought it was? And by the way, industry behemoths can get involved in sub-industries all the time and then barely leave a ripple. I think we have in the slides about Amazon JP Morgan Chase and Berkshire Hathaway creating a healthcare company that we haven't heard too much about since it was disbanded. But these can be, you know, real tape bombs and showstoppers at the time that they happen. So one is, how big could this get? And the other one is, what if this whole thing, regardless of the size of the player, is actually a fluke and I should be fading this? In that case, your best course of action is to think about what the information catalyst path looks like for people to kind of come to their senses about this disruption.
Yeah, it's very well said, Andrew. And I don't think, like, to the specific question, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing for the small competitors, right? And so I think that's the mindset kind of going in. Generally, my sense of these sort of situations is it creates more inefficiency. It creates these boogeyman narratives, right? And the Amazon point is a great point, where Amazon came in to the space, and I'll give you two examples. When Amazon started coming into healthcare, Walgreens and Teladoc both traded down a lot. And ultimately, that Amazon's entry into the pharmacy supply chain was a contributing factor to killing Walgreens, killing Rite Aid. But Teladoc bounced and then was a triple or something from that point. And so, you know, the market doesn't have a great sense of nuance in these sort of points, which is an awesome opportunity for us to go in and arbitrate, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And a lot of times that comes down to nuanced things. In home health, it may be a situation of, hey, people are worried that, you know, United Health is going to take all this share, but if the whole home health industry is at capacity and Amedisys isn't able to add more nurses to grow, maybe there really won't be much of a market share shift, and the existing players will be fine and continue to grow revenues and profits, right? And so you could fade that fear. So I think keep an open mind, understanding probably something will happen, at least a narrative volatility, and try and kind of, you know, pick your spots when that happens.